Cherish loves, welcome to another episode of Entrepreneurship Now. I am so excited to have you guys here. Entrepreneurship Now is the place where we tell the real stories of entrepreneurs, the good, the bad, and everything in between. I'm your host, LaShay LaRue, business strategist, and your go-to growth coach for this season of phenomenal excellence. Today is a really special day. I have a young lady here who has combine all of her passions, everything that she's learned throughout her career into something phenomenal. But I don't want to spoil it. I have here with me Shanae Speller. Hello, love. Welcome. She loves to go by Shay. And I want them to hear it from you. Tell our audience a little bit more about what you do.
Well, my name is Shanae Speller, and right now, currently, I have my own music festival that's centered around celebrating mental wellness through creativity and composition. So basically, creating a safe space of support for people who may be battling with like anxiety, depression, even bouts of like suicidal thoughts, right? We want to create a space for people to feel seen and feel heard and find new ways to have community with other like minded individuals. And so I created Compose because I've been in the music industry for a little over 20 years. And I wanted to, like you said, take my passion and merge it with another passion. And it just clicked. So I'm excited to bring something new and exciting to the world.
I definitely agree that it is something new. It is something exciting that you're bringing to the world because so much craziness is going on around us, and we all know the tragedy from a few years ago, everything that happened with the music festival here in Houston, and that was an absolute tragedy. And I think it is, I keep using this word phenomenal because every time I think of you and I think about what you're doing, it's exactly that. You're creating this space that heals and gives, and it doesn't just take. People literally went to just go listen to music, and some people lost their lives. And even if you successfully made it out of that festival, it affected so many people outside of that moment. So I am really touched by your entire story, but I do want to take it a step back and tell us a little bit more about the creation of this phenomenal thing, right? Where did you get the idea? How did you get the experience to even take on something like this? Because it's not small. For you guys out there who host events, you know, events are they're a whole different monster. So tell us a little bit more about the creation of Compose Fest.
I love discussing the creation of it because I'll start with going back to school. First of all, I made a decision to go back to school to get my master's degree. And that was just a decision that I wanted to make because I was feeling stagnant and I knew that there was more for me out there, right? I just had to lock in and say, okay, let me be still. And when you bring God into the conversation, this is where God played a role for me because I had to be still and listen for God to point me in the right direction and put it on my heart to say, go back to school. And so I decided to go back to school for my master's in business. I went to Howard University, which is a school that I've always wanted to go to. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I would ride the bus up and down Georgia Avenue and I would look at Howard University, I mean, as a 17-year-old and say, I would love to go there. So to be able to attend at 40, 38, 39, 40 years old was just a blessing that it came back around for me. And that opportunity, I seized it. And so within my first semester, I ended up winning the Hennessy Fellows scholarship. Shout out to Thurgood Marshall College Fund and Hennessy for creating such an amazing program that prepares you for the C-suite. At the time that I was brought into this program, I didn't even know what the C-suite was. Right. I just was excited that I was finally chosen for something. And so with this particular scholarship, they allowed you the opportunity to create some type of community event or something that meant, something close to you. So at the time that I was preparing for this festival, I had three cousins that had committed suicide. And it was really tragic to know that they were three of my male cousins. And it kind of happened like one after the other. And so that's what made me come up with the idea of that we're losing too many of our young people, right? And so I wanted to create a space where if my cousins would have been able to come to this, would it have made a difference in their choice or their decision, to take their life in this space of feeling hopeless? And so I ended up presenting my event. Everybody loved it. Hennessy awarded me $1,000. And then on top of that, they gave me an extra $25,000 on top of that because they just believed in everything that I was doing. So that's how Compose actually started.
Just wow. You guys, if you can't tell, this is the reason why I keep using the term phenomenal, because it's true. First and foremost, my heart goes out to you for the experience of losing loved ones. That's never an easy thing.
Yeah.
At the same time, it is so incredibly commendable for you to take what you were going through and use that as a catalyst to help other people. And I want for the audience to really digest that, right? This was not just her making an opportunity. This was her being obedient to God and being obedient to a calling that God had for her on her life. And do you see how that opportunity turned from $9,000 into an additional 20 plus because she was obedient to God? And why do I highlight that? Because many times we have these things in our hearts that we're placed here for a purpose of something more that we're supposed to do, and very often we ignore it. We ignore it, and then we find ourselves trapped in these cycles of, why does this keep happening? Why does my life not look like the way that I want it really to? And a lot of that can be tied back to us not being obedient to our calling. When you are obedient to your calling, you're going to have the motivation that you need to do those long hours, to go that extra mile, to put yourself out there, because you know you're not putting yourself out there alone. So I just commend you so much in that situation in its entirety. Additionally, I love the fact that you made the decision to go back to school. There are a lot of people who think that, just because I didn't do it fresh out of high school, or just because I didn't, do my undergraduates and my master back to back, that it could never happen. My grandmother is one of my biggest mentors, role models, you name it, and she went all the way through law school
Mhm.
after her kids were grown, right?
Mhm.
So these are women who are living, breathing proof that it is never too late. I was just having a conversation with my grandmother the other day, and she is on her way back to school again because she is just one of those people who just loves the knowledge. So
Yeah.
whether you are that person or not, never let fear stop you from doing something that you want to do in life. So I thank you so much for sharing that part of your story. I know it's not easy, but what you're doing is incredible. It's powerful. It's phenomenal. And one of the biggest things about it is that it's bringing so many different people together. I know this is not something that you can do by yourself. No one can really do anything that we want to in life completely by ourselves. So I want you to tell us a little bit more about the team building aspect of it, right? And what it took for you to bring this idea to the world.
Absolutely. And then really quickly, I just want to touch on what you said about fear because I was speaking to my partner about this yesterday. Fear is going to be there. I always tell people fear does not dissipate, right? It's going to be there. The key is you have to do it in spite of the fear. You have to do it even with the fear being there, looming on your shoulder, like you have the devil and the angel, right? So the fear is on the angel side, and the fear is telling you, don't do it. You're going to crash, you're going to burn, this is not going to be good for you, it's not going to work out, but you have to do it in spite of the fear. And I think that was one of the key things that I had to learn through this process too, was that yeah, I was terrified just to go back to school to get my master's with a whole bunch of 20 and 23-year-olds, right? But in that first semester getting that scholarship, everybody looked at me and was like, oh man, you didn't come to play. And so I made everybody step their game up from that point. So I just wanted to put that out there, right? You're going to be afraid every day. I'm afraid, but I still work through that fear. So let me just say that. As far as team building is not easy. You have to find the right people. Your journey and your purpose has to align, right? And so even creating the first festival, I'm not going to say I did it alone because I had people that pitched in, like the volunteers. my friends who would give me discounts on the merch that they helped me create, right? But overall, the organization, the logistics, the planning, the budgeting, the putting it together, I did that by myself. And I did that while I was working a full-time job and going to school and also planning this festival. So it was not easy. It took a lot of focus. But I would say doing it again, I'm definitely now focused on building a team. You have to have a team, but you have to have people who are like-minded individuals who work just as hard as you, who understand the purpose and the goal, and who are not out to just ride your coattail because that happens a lot, right? People see you're successful and they want to be successful, so they hop on board because they just want to be a part of anything you're doing just so it can help illuminate them, and that's not the people that you want on your team because if they believe in what you're doing and they're working hard regardless, like a light is going to be shined on them regardless. So yeah, team building is very difficult but necessary.
Yes, yes. I love that you brought up that point because for a second, let's talk about the energy leech. Right? They linger around us, they sense that we're made for greatness, and they want to attach that, and it definitely can be very draining, and I know that I've been in places where I look to my left, I look to my right, and I see a lot of energy leeches, and I feel myself constantly or I have in the past felt myself constantly drained, and I had to build myself back up
Yes.
energy-wise. And what I find is that one of the best kind of superpowers to overcome that is constant networking, constantly proactively expanding your circle. And I know that is something that you are a bit advocate for as well, always kind of putting yourself out there to grow your circle. Tell me a little bit more about how you go about networking and growing your circle and meeting people to help you bring your mission to life.
Absolutely. So there's 2 sides to networking, right? I remember growing up, what's the name of this movie? Field of Dreams? I think it was called Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come, right? So sometimes the networking part can come to you like if you just build it, the right people are going to be attracted to what you're building and they're going to show up. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is you have to find opportunities to network and connect. So what I did all last year was every month I made sure that I attended at least 2 networking events, at least 2 a month, right? You do that consistently. Yes, you're going to run into some people who cannot help you at all, but they just want more information about what you do. But then you're also going to run into people that absolutely can help you, want to assist you, want to even invest into your business, right? But if you're sitting in your room on the internet all day, then you can't run into those people. If you're not building it, then those people can't find you. So that's what I always tell people. Like, if you want to meet people, you either have to get out there and meet people, or you have to build it and provide a space for them to come meet you where you are.
Love that. I absolutely love that. And I love that you challenge yourself to attend 2 networking events every single month. And you guys, if you're not doing that, it's time to change that. I tell my coaching students all the time, if we are in the maintenance phase, then you need to do 2 a month. If we are in the growth phase and you're trying to take it to that next level, you need to be doing like 2 a week, quite
Yep.
honestly.
Agreed.
Because you need to put yourself out there as much as humanly possible in a realistic way. We're not about to lie to ourselves and say, "I'm gonna go to something every day," because 'cause you're not.
You're
Because
not.
you're not. But 2 is something because consistency is the other half of that. So it's by building that as a new habit that you will
Mhm.
start to attract those people who are aligned in your mission. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight as well is that, yes, you are going to find people who cannot directly help you do what you need to do, but you never know who
No.
is going to be a seed that God is planting in your life for it to be a blessing later on. I've had countless times where mentored a person for free, or I gave free advice, or I showed up to an event for free, and then I was blessed later on down the line. God's plan
Mhm.
is always bigger than any plan that we can have for ourselves. I recently had the experience of going to support a client at an event, and while I was there, I was able to reconnect with an old buddy who is doing phenomenal things. Turns out she's been on the exact same spiritual journey that I have. And as I was walking out the door, I met 2 additional young ladies who can be potential clients. Never would have happened if I did not get my butt up,
Yes.
get out that house and show up because I previously committed to it. And that's a really big thing. There was a blessing and a curse that happened with COVID. The blessing was that it became more normalized to do things virtually, like now, like this. This would not happen if it was not for this technology, right? Us being able to be
Yep.
in completely different locations to make this interview happen. But the downside is that a lot of us got real comfortable being in a house. I am one of them. So we have to push ourselves. We have to push ourselves to get out of the house. And I love that you do that. I love that you put yourself out there. And I know with the business, even though you're doing incredible things, it's not always easy. There are
Ooh,
definitely some hard times as well, and for those of us who are listening who may be going through those hard times, share a little bit more about your testimony when it comes to that. What's the hardest part of launching a festival?
the hardest part of launching a festival is the fundraising aspect of it. So going into the first year, I have funding through Thurgood Marshall College Fund and Hennessy. And then going into the second year, I hit a roadblock. And I was like, okay, thinking I'm on a high of the first festival. Hennessy is going to give me more money because they love what I do, or whoever seen the first festival and they want to invest, this is going to be easy. I got this. And then I hit a complete roadblock and came to a stop. And then that made me have to like think and revamp my process and how I was going about getting funding for my festival. I mean, it even made me think like, should I stay for profit? Should I go nonprofit? Should I bring in partners to take care of half of it? But then that means I give up a little piece of my business, right? Of my ownership. So you have to think from every aspect, but fundraising is definitely the most difficult part and the reason why I'm still in the process of relaunching now. But it's honestly a beautiful place to be because without these roadblocks, you don't think beyond what you see in front of you. I welcome the challenges because it's only going to make me better. It's only going to make my business better. It's only going to make me go out and grind harder. Even when I think about networking, I meet so many people that battle with mental health, right? Like we were taught as a community to keep it in. It's not cool to talk to therapists or it's not cool to tell your business. This is where stigma comes in. But with me being out and about discussing these topics, putting it in people's face, right? I'm seeing that we all deal with mental health on different levels. And so this is what makes Compose so special because being in the music industry for over 20 years, for me, that's all I knew. Music, music, music. I mean, I've done every aspect of it. And then when my committed suicide, I realized then like, oh, I have another passion. Like I love, being able to talk to people and seeing like, what they're dealing with and trying to provide resources for them. It just ignited something new in me. And then I said, how can I merge these two? Right. So Compose merges my two passions of music and mental health, which is also community. And so it was just the perfect space for me to reside in. And so that's why even when the roadblocks come, I'm happy. I feel good because this is where I know I want to be. And I think like when roadblocks come for people, if they can't stand through it, maybe they have to rethink their passions because it's not always going to be easy. So that's just how I feel about roadblocks and things not being easy. What is easy? And if it's easy, it's not worth it. If it's difficult and it makes me think and I have to work through these issues, it just makes me better.
Look, you showed up today, okay? So much to unpack with that. I mean, I first off, I agree with everything that you just said. When it comes to trying to do a business venture, so many times people get into ventures because they're looking at the dollar signs, but entrepreneurship is not easy, right? You have to have some greater whys, some greater motivation, some greater push that is going to see you through to the other side. Like, first
Mhm.
and foremost, I cannot stress that enough.
And let me say this too, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Social media makes it seem like everybody is supposed to be CEO. Well, if everybody is supposed to be CEO, then who's going to be COO? Who's gonna be the director? Who's gonna be the vice president? Who's gonna be the janitor, right? Like, everybody is not going to be CEO, but I think once we realize that, then we can kind of find our place, and when you're able to find your place, then you can contribute and you can add to the world in the way that God intended. So I think, I just wanted to put that out there too. It's not for everybody.
True. It's very true. And amen to that. I will say that I think everybody can do a little something to get a little money on the side, but
Mhm.
every something that you do to make money doesn't have to be a full blown business. So I want to
Yeah.
be clear about that. Just because something is a hobby that you get paid for does not mean it's time for us to quit our jobs and do that full time.
Yep.
Okay. The way this economy is set up, extra income is something that we all need a little bit of.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean like we all have to understand that when it comes to entrepreneurship and owning a business, there are a lot of requirements, right? There are a
Mhm.
lot of from the tax requirements to the employee requirements to the tracking requirements, the marketing. Like it is a lot
Mhm.
behind running a business. And we all have gifts, right? And sometimes our gifts are best used by using it to support someone who is already doing a lot of what we want to do, right? And helping them to further their mission. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make one better or worse than the other. You're always going to be blessed as long as you are doing what God called you to do. And that answer is not always entrepreneurship. So I will go ahead and say yes to your point with that. Starting a business is not necessarily the thing for everyone, but for those of us who are in that place, I love that you brought up the funding aspect of it. It's a conversation I often have with students about funding because a lot of people haven't, even though we know we started this business because we wanted to make money, very few people have actually thought about exactly where and how that money is going to happen. They
Yes.
assume to your point earlier, if you build it, they will come. And when it comes to the money side, that's not always how that works. We have to be very proactive and often creative about how that's going to happen. A lot of times, the end user, the person who's going to receive that good product or service, is not the person who's going to fund the business. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's take Composed Fest. Let's take Shay's as an example, right? Her first year was very successful, and one of the biggest contributions for that was a scholarship that she won, getting over at $30,000 of funding before she ever even sold a ticket. I'm pretty sure that took a huge weight off of your shoulders when it came to executing your vision. And you definitely noticed that by year two, trying to do it without that huge influx of income. So we definitely have to be more creative about how we're funding our business. Seek sponsorships, seek
Mhm.
scholarships, seek grants, seek partnerships, and not all partnerships have to be you giving up equity. So I will say that one, you can bring on a partner, and let's say one of the things that you need are your banners and promotional items, right? Maybe you can add that person as a grand sponsor for your event in exchange for a discount and see partnership in that way. I view partnership not just as equity partners, but anybody who's able to help you in a tremendous way to further your mission. That's a partner, right? And when you have that conversation with them, as opposed to, hey, how about you give me some of your money because I'm doing this great thing? Instead, you approach it as, hey, this is my goal. This is my mission. We connect when it comes to this. Let's see how we can partner together to make this thing happen. And you'd be surprised. People are very open to contributing in that way, but it takes a lot of being proactive, starting early, being consistent, and having systems. One of the things that I commend Shay on is having a phenomenal system within her structure. A lot of times people have events and they don't have pitch decks and they don't have a brand as far as the aesthetics and it being able to be consistent throughout. But I know that was something that you were really big on. So tell me a little bit more about that as we get close to the end of this interview. How did you put together your system to execute Compose Fest?
So I think being in school was also a big help at the time. Like going to get my MBA really helped me understand everything that was needed because I would just go to my professors, right? I would go to like to my entrepreneurship professor and I would say, "Hey, here is my business plan. Would you mind looking over this and letting me know what's missing, what I can do better?" and getting feedback from there. But everybody don't have that, right? And I'm not saying that everybody needs to go back to school in order to become an entrepreneur, but you definitely need mentorship And so having the right people in place helped me to understand what was missing. Like a pitch deck to me is probably the first thing. Right? The first thing I wanted to create was a pitch deck because that's how I'm able to get people to see my vision. I could talk about it all day, but visually I want people to see what it is that I'm presenting. So on top of that, not only did I want you to see visually, but I also wanted you to hear, right? So I created a video, I created a rap, and I created a video that was geared towards Compose because that's what you were going to get if you attended. So to be able to present me rapping and then bringing in a few of my partners who were a part of the festival and including them on the rap too, right? It made them want to be invested even more. And so I think that was just the start of it, starting with the pitch deck, creating the video, then led to me seeing that and saying, okay, well, what else can I give? Right. So and I said, well, I need a budget. I need to know, okay, well, if they're going to be giving me this much money, how am I going to spend it? What do I want the look of it to be like? When people walk through the door, what do I want them to feel? What is the overarching goal of the festival is for people to walk away with resources. So I need to provide resources, right? And then I also need to think, okay, well, while they're at the festival, what are they going to do? I don't want them just walking around going to tables like a lot of the festivals do. I want people to be able to get into the music, into the composition, into the creativity part of it. So then I brought in people who were able to, talk about music and how music leads to people having lower depression rates, lower anxiety, lower suicidal thoughts, right? And so overall, I kind of had to rearrange it in my mind a little bit, but as you go through it and you complete it, you see, okay, this is missing. Let me add this. Now that I have this, let me pass this back to my mentor or to my professor and say, what does this look like? And then they say, well, this is great, but try adding this. So again, I didn't do it by myself. You need mentors. You need people that can help you structure your business and understand exactly what it is that you want to do and be able to put it together so that people can see what it is that you want and then say, "Okay, I'm going to buy a ticket to this because I need this. What is the need? This is it. I need it. I'm going to spend my money." And that's just how I thought about it.
Love that. I absolutely love that because it's true. It's so true. A lot of times people want to look at the end result of the success, but they totally forget about all that in between of what had to happen to get them to that point. Coaching and at very least furthering your education is so incredibly important. When you look at the top 1%, they're reading minimally one book a month, right? That is the minimum requirement. So if you're a listener and you're like, I haven't read a book since high school let out, then it's time to change that. It's
It's
time to
time.
change that. Let's get excited about education and let's not just read the things that are entertaining. Let's read the things that will help us as individuals. So from, a self-help book to a marketing book, whatever it is, let's go ahead and make sure that we are furthering our education. Get a coach. I am a
Mhm.
business coach who has spent thousands. Did you hear that? Not a couple hundred, thousands for me to further my personal knowledge of how I run my business and how I coach my students as well. When you look at the most successful out there when it comes to even athletes, last time I checked, every single last one of them had a coach, right? Even if you're talking about LeBron, even if you're talking about Michael Jordan, coach
And
since the
let me say this too,
mhm,
that's very true because by me having an MBA, it does not mean that I know everything, right? So that's why I'm open to having a coach because I love that you use sports. Like LeBron, he's LeBron, but he
right.
still has a coach, right? And so that's what helps me to understand, like even for me, I still need a coach, I still need mentorship because my focus is one thing. Like honestly, my focus is linear, right? I'm like, okay, I want this festival. I know I need to do to get it done, but there's so many other aspects around that that I could be missing. So this is where having other eyes and other energy on the project comes in.
Yes, that's a really good point because a lot of times people think you get coaching just in the same way they think of therapy. You get therapy when things are broken. That's not true, right? You don't get a coach just because everything is falling apart or just because you have no idea where to start. And the same way LeBron didn't get a coach because one day he woke up and forgot how to play basketball, right?
Mhm.
You get a coach so that you can have another pair of eyes on your situation. from someone who thinks differently than you, who may see something that you're currently missing. Why? Because you're living in your body, you're living through your experience. And sometimes having that out, not sometimes, I would say all times, it can be helpful having that additional perspective of someone looking at your situation and saying, hey, have you thought about this? Have you tried this? Did you notice there was a gap over here? Here are some possible solutions for you. So I absolutely love it. And I mentioned that that's a connection to mental health as well. And I love that you brought up earlier how, and it's something that I forgot to bring up at that time, but I do want to highlight this. We all have to deal with mental health. Mental health is not about being broken. Mental health is a thing that we all experience.
Mhm.
When you get a cold, do you consider yourself to be broken? Is that just and you're just a sick person, and that's just it, right? You just need medicine just because you're sick. No, right? You're dealing with an illness that is due to perhaps this time of year, right? That is due to something that's going on in the world, and you
Yep.
have to heal yourself and get past it and be aware that it could come back at any time. You could develop something else at any time. It's the same way when it comes to our emotions. You can be totally happy today and not so much tomorrow. You could wake
Yep.
up happy as can be, and then life gets to life and you are ticked off at the entire world by lunch. So we have to understand that our emotions are a spectrum in every possible capacity and know that the good and the bad, we have to take them both, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
And we have to feel them fully and acknowledge that these things really do happen. And I think that's one of the biggest things that really prevents people from seeking help because they think that because I feel this way, I'm broken or there's
Mhm.
something wrong with me. And that's not true. You'd be surprised how many people out there that are around you in your circle that you walk past every day that are dealing with suicidal ideations.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then before we close, I just want to say this too, because this is a really important part of my journey as well. This goes back to the if you build it, they will come. I was just having a talk with a young lady who just graduated from Howard with her bachelor's, and she reached out to me because she wanted guidance. She was like, I see everything that you have going on, and I love where you're at. And it's like, help me. And I'm just like, listen, you see where I'm at now, but you don't know what I went through to get here. So let me just explain to you like if you build it, they will come. And that may not necessarily mean for your business. So for me, when I was starting Composed, I had reached out to University of Houston, their counseling and psychological services department because I wanted them to come to the festival and present for a table. And the young lady that is in charge of outreach for that particular department, I met her when I was graduating from University of Houston downtown almost 10 years ago. And so we followed each other on LinkedIn. University of Houston never came out to the festival because I guess it was out of their scope, right? So they was like, "We're not gonna be able to make it." Fine, I understand, no worries. Then, I wanna say of maybe 7 months ago, the same young lady that I met 10 years ago at University of Houston downtown reached out to me and said, "Hey, Shanae, I have the perfect role position for you." And I was
Mm,
like, "What?"
mhm.
So I didn't even have to, and this is really, really, really important because I need for people to really understand. Sometimes things don't always come the way that we think they're going to come. And this is where God comes in too, right? You have to trust God and you have to trust his timing and you have to trust his process. Because I've been in the music industry for 20 years. I would have already thought that I would have been big time in the industry by now. Nobody would have been able to tell me anything. Okay, I would have been working with Chris Breezy. I'd have been on tour, Breezy Bowl right now. Okay. Um, but sometimes that's not how like the plans we have for our lives, it's not what God has for our lives. And so when she reached out to me, I was doing Uber. I was frustrated with applying for all these jobs, having all of these credentials and all of this experience. And I just kept getting passed up and looked over. And I never lost sight of the fact that God got me. Just stay diligent, stay focused. God got you. That's not saying that days didn't get hard. Days were trying. It was times where I would be out doing Uber 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning crying because I'm just like, I did all of this to end up here driving. And then God sent this young lady in LinkedIn, in my messages, "Hey, we have the perfect position for you." Okay. Applied for it, interviewed, got the position. And it is it's the JED Strategy Program Director for the Counseling and Psychological Services Department. Had I not ever listened to God, what He put on my heart for mental health, I would have never created that festival. I would have never reached out to University of Houston. I would have never been contacted by someone I met 10 years ago, and I would not be sitting in this role right now working in mental health on one of the largest universities in Texas and one of the top in the country, right? So I'm still working on my business, but that experience also led me to this amazing role where I'm able to contribute to the lives of these young people, where we're able to catch them upstream before they actually, get to that point in life where now they have to take medication in order to cope. I'm able to inject something into these young people's lives early on. So, you know, it's just a reminder to keep pushing, keep believing in what it is that you're doing because somebody is watching. Okay, somebody is watching. You don't know who, but as long as you continue to move in the space that God created and you're consulting with God and you're praying and you're spending time with Him, He's going to direct your path. So
Yeah.
I had to say that, right? I had to let people know because people say, "Oh, well, what are you doing? I haven't seen you doing a festival. Festival is coming." But in the meantime, God is still using me. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I have from this is like, if you build it, they will come. And so don't be afraid to step out there and put yourself out there and do what's on your heart to do because had I not done that, I wouldn't be here now. And you think about C-suite, now I understand what it is and I'm on that path to suite to C-suite, not just for myself and my own business, but even here on campus. And so I'm just excited. And I want to thank you, LaShay, because I met you at an event networking and your energy was amazing. And I'm not very trusting of people, right? Especially having an MBA. I'm like, how can people help me? Right. But I just loved your energy and we've been connected ever since. And I always want to pour into people. So I knew that I was not going to get your services until I was able to pay you for what it is that you do, just like anybody else wants to be paid, right? Like, stop trying to get free things from people because we're all grinding. It's a hustle and it's a grind in a good sense for everybody. So when you come across people and they provide a service, pay them. And that's just how I feel. And the same thing for me. You come across me, you want my services, pay me.
Shay, I just love you. I swear everything that I thought I wanted to end out on, you received the message, you understood the assignment, and you hit all the points. That was
Had to.
I love that. I love the obedience. I love the highlight of that 10-year-old seed that has grown into this massive tree of impact that
Listen, don't get me to crying.
queen. You
Yes.
as you are changing lives. You're still doing the mission. That's the most important thing. Like people think that
Yes.
they look like this thing, but no, the mission is the same. It's
The
just how you
mission is the same.
mission
And we might fall off the mission sometimes, but God is gonna bring us right back.
brings you back, always
Yes,
brings you always, always, always brings you back, and again, the more that you lean into that obedience, the more that you start to see that, "Wow, wait a minute. Wow, I've been fighting you this whole time because, like, you had me. What you
yes.
had for me was so much better than I could." It seems like he created that job just for you.
Just for me. And it's a new role, and just so people can know what JED means, JED is a young man who committed suicide on a campus, and his parents created this foundation to go across campuses nationwide to create this foundation, to fund it, to do a review of the campus, and then insert recommendations to help them build a bigger, stronger culture around mental health and well-being to reduce suicide on campuses. I can't speak to this enough when it comes to, like, what God did for me. Like,
Yes.
look at what God did for me.
Yes, I'm moved. I'm trying not to cry myself, mess up my makeup, and I got more interviews to do. I am just so moved by everything that you have done, everything that you have been through, and I am excited to see everything that God has for you and that He's going to use you to do in the future. And I know you guys have to be. You cannot have listened to this interview and not been moved. So I'm going to make sure that we have all of Shay's contact information in the show notes because I think that's such an important part. I want people to be able to support your mission. I want them to be able to support everything that you have going on. So make sure you reach out to her, even if it's just to leave a comment and
Yes.
say, girl, you did that. Keep it up. Right. I want us to support each other because entrepreneurship is so hard and
Yes,
we
it
don't
is.
have to do it alone. So thank
Yes.
you so much, Shay, for coming in today. You guys, thank you for watching. Until next time, bye, my cherished loves.
Thank you.